Yesterday I thought I stopped at chapter 34, and I have a little notebook that I had written down how Genesis was to be read and divided up. But with that, I did not go to chapter 35, so we are starting in chapter 35 and going to chapter 40. Again, I'm reminding everybody that I'm reading out of the Interlinear Bible. This is the Old Testament, which is the Hebrew and the Aramaic translation. Genesis chapter 35. And God said to Jacob, Rise up, go to Bethel, and live there, and make an altar to God there, who appeared to you when you fled before your brother Esau. And Jacob said to his house and to all those with him, Put away the strange gods which are in your midst, and purify yourselves, and change your clothing, and let us rise up and go to Bethel, and I will make an altar there to God, he who answered me in the days of my distress. And he was with me in the way in which I went. And they gave all the strange gods in their hand to Jacob, and the earrings which were in their earrings. The print on these interlinear Bibles is so small on the side. And Jacob hid them under the oak which was in Shechem. And they pulled up and went. And the terror of God was on the cities, they were all around them. They did not pursue the sons of Jacob. And Jacob came to Luz, which is in the land of Canaan, it being Bethel, and he and all the people with him. And he built an altar there, and called the place El Bethel, because God revealed himself to him there, when he fled from his brother. And Rebekah's nurse Deborah died, and was buried below Bethel under the oak. And he called its name Oak of Weeping. And God appeared to Jacob again, when he came out of Padan Aram, and blessed him. And God said to him, Your name is Jacob. Your name shall not be called Jacob any more, but Israel shall be your name. And he called his name Israel. And God said to him, I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be from you, and kings shall go forth from your loins. And the land which I give to Abraham and to Isaac, which I gave to Abraham and to Isaac, I will give it to you. And I will give the land to your seed after you. And God went up from him in the place where he had spoken with him. And Jacob set up a memorial pillar in the place where he had spoken with him, a pillar of stone. And he poured a drink offering on it, and he poured oil on it. And Jacob called the name of the place where God had spoken with him, Bethel. And they pulled up from Bethel, and there was a Kibrah of land before they came to Ephrath. And Rachel bore, and she had hard labor in her bearing. And it happened as she had hard labor in her bearing, the midwife said to her, Do not fear, for this also is a son for you. And it happened as her soul was going forth, for she died, she called his name Benoni. But his father called him Benjamin. And Rachel died and was buried in the way of Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. And Jacob set up a pillar on her grave, that is, the pillar of Rachel's grave to today. And Israel pulled up stakes. And he stretched his tent beyond the tower of the flocks. And it happened while Israel lived in that land, Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. And Israel heard. And the sons of Jacob were 12, the sons of Leah, Reuben, the firstborn of Jacob, and Simeon, and Levi, and Judah, and Issachar, and Zebulun, the sons of Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin, and the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's slave girl, Dan, and Naphtali, and the sons of Zilpah, Leah's slave girl, Gad, and Asher. These were the sons of Jacob which were born to him in Padan Aram. And Jacob came to his father Isaac to Mamre, to the city of Arba, which is Hebron, where he had Abraham and Isaac. And the days of Isaac were 180 years. And Isaac expired and died, and was gathered to his people, old and satisfied of days. And his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. Genesis chapter 36. And these are the generations of Esau, that is, Edom. Esau took his wives from the daughters of Canaan, Adah, the daughter of Elon, the Hittite, and Aholibamah, the daughter of Anna, the daughter of Zibeon the Hivite, and Basemath, the daughter of Ishmael, sister of Nebajoth. And Ada bore Eliphaz to Esau, and Basemath bore Reuel, and Aholibamah bore Jeush, and Jalam, and Korah. These were the sons of Esau, who were born to him in the land of Canaan. And Esau took his wives and his sons and his daughters, and all the souls of his house, and his livestock, and all his beasts of burden, and all his property which he had acquired in the land of Canaan. And he went to a land away from his brother Jacob, for their possessions had become great. Keeping them from dwelling together in the land of their travel was not able to bear them because of their livestock. And Esau dwelt on Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. And these were the generations of Esau, the father of Edom, on Mount Seir. The names of the sons of Esau: Eliphaz, the son of Ada, a wife of Esau; Reuel, the son of Basemath, a wife Esau. And the sons of Eliphaz: Taman, Omar, Zepho, and Gedam, and Kenaz. And Timnah was a concubine to Eliphaz, the son of Esau, and she bore Amalek to Eliphaz. These were the sons of Esau's wife Ada. And the sons of Reuel: Nahath, and Zara, Shammah, and Mizah. These were the sons of Basemath, Esau's wife. And these were the sons of Oholibamah, the daughter of Anna, the daughter of Zibeon, Esau's wife. Even she bore Jeush to Esau, and Jalam, and Korah. These were the chiefs of the sons of Esau. The sons of Eliphaz, Esau's firstborn: chief Teman, chief Omar, chief Zepho, chief Kenaz, chief Korah, chief Gedam, chief Amalek. And these were the chiefs of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. These the sons of Ada. And these were the sons of Reuel, Esau's sons: chief Nahath, chief Zerah, chief Shammah, chief Mizah. These were the chiefs of Reuel in the land of Edom. These were the sons of Basemath, Esau's wife. And the sons of Oholibamah, Esau's wife: chief Jeush, chief Jalam, chief Korah. These were the chiefs of Oholibamah, the daughter of Anna, Esau's wife. These were the sons of Esau, and these their chiefs: he is Edom. These were the sons of Seir, the Horite, living in the land: Lotan, and Shabol, and Zibeon, and Anna, and Dishon, and Ezer, and Dishon. These were the chiefs of the Horites, the sons of Seir, in the land of Edom. And the sons of Lotan: Hori, and Haman, and Lotan's sister Timnah. And these were the sons of Shabal: Alvan, and Manahath, and Ebal, Shepho, and Onam. And these were the sons of Zibeon: even Ash, and Anna. He is Anna, who found the hot springs in the desert as he fed the asses of his father Zibeon. And these were the sons of Anna: Dishon, and Oholibamah was the daughter of Anna. And these were the sons of Dishon: Hamdan, and Eshban, and Ithran, and Sharan. These were Ezer's sons: Bilhan, and Zavan, and Achan. These were Dishon's sons: Uz, and Aran. These were the chiefs of the Horites: chief Latan, chief Shabol, chief Zibeon, chief Anna, chief Dishon, chief Ezer, chief Dishon. These were the chiefs of the Horites, according to their chiefs in the land of Seir. And these were the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before the reigning of a king over the sons of Israel. And Bela the son of Beor reigned in Edom, and the name of his city Dinhabath. And Bela died, and Jobab the son of Zerah from Bozrah reigned in his place. And Jobab, died, and Husham from the land of the Tenamites reigned in his place. And Husham died, and Hadad the son of Bedad, who smote Midian in the field of Moab, reigned in his place. And the name of his city, Avith. And Hadad died, and Shemish from Masrekah reigned in his place. And Samiah died, and Shul from Rehoboth by the river reigned in his place. And Shul died, and Baal-Hanan the son of Akbar reigned in his place. And Baal-Hanan the son of Akbar died, and Hadar reigned in his place. And the name of his city was Paul, and his wife's name Madabel, the daughter of Metrid, the daughter of Mazahab. And these were the names of the chiefs of Esau according to their families, according to their places by their names: Chief Timnah, Chief Alva, Chief Jetheth, Chief Ohalabama, Chief Allah, Chief Penin, Chief Kenez, and Chief Temin, Chief Mibzar, Chief Magdiel, Chief Aram. These were the chiefs of Edom according to their dwellings in the land of their possession. He is Esau, the father of Edom. Chapter 37. And Jacob lived in the land of his father's travels in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, a son of 17 years, was tending the flock with his brothers, with Bilhah's sons, and with Zilpah's sons, his father's wives, and he was a youth. And Joseph came with an evil report of them to their father. And Israel loved Joseph more than all his sons, because he was a son of old age to him, and he made a robe reaching to the feet. And his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, and they hated him, and they were not able to speak peaceably to him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and told it to his brothers, and they increased to hate him still more. And he said to them, Now hear this dream which I have dreamed. And behold, we were binding sheaves in the middle of the field. And behold, my sheaf rose up and also stood up. And behold, your sheaves came round and bowed themselves to my sheaf. And his brothers said to him, Shall you indeed reign over us, or shall you really rule over us? And they hated him still more because of his dreams, and because of his words. And he dreamed still another dream, and told it to his brothers. And he said, Behold, I have dreamed another dream. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing themselves to me. And he told it to his father and to his brothers. And his father rebuked him, and said to him, What is this dream which you have dreamed? Shall we indeed come to bow ourselves to the earth to you, I, your mother, and your brothers? And his brothers were jealous of him, but his father paid attention to the word. And his brothers went to feed the flocks of their father in Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, Are not your brothers feeding the flocks in Shechem? Come, and I will send you to them. And he said to him, Here I am. And he said to him, Now go and see the welfare of your brothers, and the welfare of the flock, and bring word back to me. And he sent him out of the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What do you seek? And he said, I am looking for my brothers. Please tell me where they are feeding. And the man said, They pulled up from here, for I heard them say, Let us go toward Dothan. And Joseph went after his brothers, and found them in Dothan. And they saw him from afar. And before he came near to them, they plotted against him to put him to death. And they said to each his brother, Behold, this master of dreams is coming. And come now, and let us kill him, and throw him into one of the pits. And let us say, An evil beast has eaten him. And let us see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard and saved him from their hands, and said, Let us not smite his soul. And Reuben said to them, Do not shed blood. Throw him into a pit here in the desert, but do not lay a hand on him, so that he might deliver him from their hands to return him to his father. And when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped his long coat from Joseph, the long coat on him, reaching to his feet. And they took him and threw him into the pit being empty, no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread. And they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. And their camels were bearing spices and balsam gum and sticky gum, going down to take them to Egypt. And Judah said to his brothers, What gain is it that we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and do not let our hand be on him, for he is our brother, our flesh. And his brothers listened. And men, Midianites, traders, came by, and they drew up Joseph and took him out of the pit. And they sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. And Reuben came back to the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he tore his garment. And he returned to his brothers and said, The child he has not, and I, where shall I go? And they took Joseph's long coat and killed a ram of the goats, and dipped the long coat in the blood. And they sent the long coat reaching to the feet, and they took it to their father, and said, We found this. Now look, is it your son's long coat? And he knew it, and said, My son's long coat. An evil beast has eaten him. Surely Joseph is torn in pieces. And Jacob tore his clothing and put sackcloth on his loins, and he mourned many days for his sons. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him. And he refused to be comforted, and said, I will go down to Sheol, mourning for my son. And his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt, to Potiphar, a eunuch of Pharaoh, the chief of the executioners. Genesis chapter 38. And it happened at that time that Judah went down away from his brothers, and turned aside to a man of Adullam, named Hirah. And Judah saw there a daughter of a Canaanite man named Shua. And he took her, and he went into her, and she conceived and bore a son. And he called his name And she conceived again and bore a son, and called his name Onan. And she continued still and bore a son, and she called his name Shelah. And he was at Chezib, where she bore him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, named Tamar. And Judah's firstborn, was evil in the eyes of Jehovah, and Jehovah killed him. And Judah said to Onan, Go to your brother's wife and marry her, and raise up seed to your brother. And Onan knew that the seed would not be his. And it happened when he went into his brother's wife, he wasted his semen to the ground, not giving seed to his brother. And what he did was evil in the eyes of Jehovah, and he also killed him. And Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, Live as a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah is grown. For he said, Lest he also die like his brothers. And Tamar went and lived in her father's house. And the days were many, and the wife of Judah, the daughter of Shua, died. And Judah was comforted. And he went up to the shears of his flocks, he and his friend Hirah of Adullam, to Timnah. And Tamar was told, saying, Behold, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his flocks. And she took off her widow's robe from her, and veiled herself with a veil, and disguised herself. And she sat at the entrance of Anam, which is on the way to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah had grown up, and she had not been given to him for a wife. And Judah saw her, and he thought she was a harlot, because she had veiled her face. And he turned aside to her by the roadway, and said, Come now, let me come into you. For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, What will you give me that you may come into me? And he said, I will send a kid of the goats from the flock. And she said, Will you give me a pledge until you send it? And he said, What is the pledge which I shall give to you? And she said, Your signet ring, and your bracelet, and your staff in your hand. And he gave to her, and came into her. And she conceived by him, and she rose up and left, and took off her veil from her face. And she put on her widow's robe. And Judah sent the kid of the goats by the hand of his friend, the Adullamite, to receive the pledge from the woman's hand. And he did not find her. And he asked the men of her place, saying, Where is the harlot that was in Anam, by the roadway? And they said, There was no harlot here. And he returned to Judah and said, I have not found her. And also the men of the place said, There was no harlot here. And Judah said, let her take them for herself, that we not become a laughingstock. See, I sent this kid, and you did not find her. And after 3 months it happened. It was told to Judah, saying, your daughter-in-law, Tamar, has committed adultery. And also, behold, she is pregnant by whoredom. And Judah said, bring her out and let her be burned. She was being brought out, and she sent to her father-in-law, saying, I am pregnant by a man to whom these belong. And she said, note now, whose are these? The signet ring, the bracelet, and the staff. And Judah looked intently and said, she is more righteous than I, because I did not give her to my son Shelah. And he never knew her again. And in the time of her bearing, behold, it happened, twins were in her womb. And in her bearing, it happened that one put forth a hand, and the midwife took it and tied crimson on his hand, saying, this one came out first. And it happened as he withdrew his hand, behold, his brother came out. And she said, how have you broken a break for yourself? And one called his name Pharez. And then his brother came out, on whose hand was the crimson. And one called his name Zorah. Genesis chapter 39. And Joseph was made to go into Egypt. And Potiphar, a eunuch of Pharaoh, the chief of the executioners, an Egyptian man, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had made him go there. And Jehovah was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man. And he was in the Egyptian's house, his master. And his master saw that Jehovah was with him, and everything which Joseph did was prospering in his hand. And Joseph found favor in his sight and served him. And he appointed him over his house, and he gave all he owned into his hand. And it came about that from the time he appointed him over his house and over all he owned, Jehovah blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of Jehovah was on all that he had, in the house and in the field. And he left all that he owned in Joseph's hand. And he did not know anything that he had, except the bread which he was eating. And Joseph was beautiful in form and beautiful of appearance. And after these things it happened that his master's wife lifted up her eyes to Joseph, and said, lie with me. And he refused, and said to his master's wife, behold, my master does not know what is in the house with me, and all that he owns he has given into my hand. No one in this house is greater than I, and he has not withered anything from me except you. Withheld, I said withered. Because you are his wife. And how should I do this great evil and sin against God? And it happened as she spoke to Joseph day after day, he did not listen to her, to lie beside her, to be with her. And it happened on this day that he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house were there in the house. And she caught him by his robe, saying, lie with me. And he left his robe in her hand and fled and went outside. And it happened when she saw that he had left his robe in her hand, and he had fled outside, she called to the men of her house and spoke to them, saying, see, he has brought to us a Hebrew man to mock at us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And when he heard that I raised my voice and cried, he left his robe by me and fled and went outside. And she kept his robe beside her until the coming of his master to his house. And she spoke these same words to him, saying, the Hebrew slave whom you brought into us came into me to mock at me. And it happened at my raising my voice and crying out, he left his robe beside me and fled outside. And it happened when his masters heard his wife's words, which she spoke to him, saying, according to these words your slave did to me, his anger glowed. And Joseph's master put him into the prison's house, the place where the king's prisoners were imprisoned. And Jehovah was with Joseph, and extended kindness to him, and he gave him favor in the eyes of the warden of the prison house. And the wardens of the prison house gave all the prisoners into the prison house into Joseph's hand. And all which they did there he was doing. There was no looking of the warden of the prison house to anything in his hand, in that Jehovah was with him, and Jehovah was prospering what he was doing. Genesis chapter 40. And after these things had happened, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt sinned against their Lord, asking the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry against his two officers, against the chief of the cupbearers, and against the chief of the bakers. And he gave them into custody in the house of the chief of the executioners, into the prison house, the place where Joseph was imprisoned. And the chief of the executioners assigned Joseph to be with them, and he ministered to them. And they were in custody many days. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each his dream in one night, each according to the interpretation of his dream. The cupbearer and the baker who belonged to the king of Egypt, who were imprisoned and in the prison house. And Joseph came in to them in the morning, and he looked at them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked the officers of Pharaoh, who were with him in custody, and in the house of his Lord, saying, Why are your faces sad today? And they said to him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter. And Joseph said to them, Do not interpretations belong to God. Now tell it to me. And the chief of the cupbearers told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches. And as its budding, it went up into blossom. Its clusters ripened into grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand. And I took the grapes and pressed them into the cup of Pharaoh. And I gave the cup into the hand of Pharaoh. And Joseph said to him, This is the interpretation. The 3 branches, they are 3 days. Yet within 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head and will return you to your place. And you will give the cup of Pharaoh into his hand according to the former custom when you were his cupbearer. But remember me along with yourself, when it is well with you, and please do kindness with me, and mention me to Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For truly I was stolen from the land of the Hebrews, and here also I have not done anything that they should put me into the dungeon. And the chief of the bakers saw that the interpretation was good. And he said to Joseph, I also in my dream saw 3 baskets of white bread on my head, and in the top basket some from all the food of Pharaoh, the work of a baker. And the birds were eating them from the basket off my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is its interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days, yet within 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head from you and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh off you. And it happened on the 3rd day, the day of Pharaoh's birth. He made a feast for all his servants, and he lifted up his head of the chief of the cupbearers and the head of the chief of the bakers. And in the midst of his servants, he restored the chief of the cupbearers to his cupbearer office, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And he hanged the chief of the bakers, as Joseph interpreted to them. And the chief of the cupbearers did not remember Joseph, but forgot him.